Kentucky basketball's got a spicy rematch with the Oklahoma Sooners in Nashville, and I'm going to tell you how Mark Pope and the Cats are going to get it done.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky. I'm your host, Lance Dawe. On today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to be previewing Kentucky basketball's rematch with the Oklahoma Sooners. That's right, Oklahoma defeated Georgia in the first round of the SEC tournament, so they'll take on the Wildcats later on tonight. Going to break down how exactly the Sooners did topple the Bulldogs. Going to talk about the positives, the negatives, the keys to the game, and just how important the X factors might be. Maybe some of the role players in this contest. Today's episode is brought to you by TurboTax. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com today and get matched with your expert. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. And if you are watching on YouTube, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribe to the show. And if you are listening on podcast, I would also appreciate it if you subscribed there as well. Really quickly, before we get into Kentucky's matchup, the rematch with Oklahoma, I want to remind you guys, go join the Locked On Kentucky bracket pool. Link is in the description or on the YouTube comments pinned wherever you are tuned in. We've got the link there for you. Go join the ESPN bracket pool, the Locked On Kentucky bracket pool. There's like 75, 80 of you in there already. Would love for you to join up and be a part of the pool. Maybe there's a prize in store for the winner. Who knows? All right, Kentucky versus Oklahoma, the rematch after the Wildcats went into Norman in late February and toppled the Sooners 83-82 on a go-ahead shot there at the end of the game from none other than Otega Oweh, who scored 21 of the team's last 23 points. The rematch in Nashville here, after Oklahoma defeated Georgia 81-75. The first thing we're going to go through here today is how exactly the Sooners actually went through and toppled the Bulldogs. We're going to talk about what they did in this game, and then we're going to go into our keys to the game, kind of previewing the matchup with the Sooners. If you don't know anything about Oklahoma, we're going to do our best here to break them down. So Kentucky, obviously, got the win 83-82. Oklahoma 81-75 over Georgia. How'd they do it? Well, first and foremost, it was an insane outside shooting performance. Both Jeremiah Fears and Jalon Moore went off from deep. I believe combined, the Sooners hit 12 threes across the board against the Bulldogs, and they were shooting hot from the jump. 12 of 25 from beyond the arc is what they finished. 48% from three, and it was Moore and Fears again, both hitting 4 3-pointers apiece. Moore going 4 of 5, Fears going 4 of 7. From beyond the arc, and that's what kept them in this one, and that's ultimately what allowed them to pull away late. It was the 3-point shot and just how consistently multiple players across their rotation were able to hit. They also won the free throw line, and this is something that we've continued to emphasize here with Kentucky as they get down the stretch, is not allowing opponents to overtake you from the charity stripe. 17 of 25 is what Oklahoma shot in this game. The fact that they were able to take 25 was incredible because Georgia only hit 9 of their 16 free throws. So Georgia ended up taking less free throws than Oklahoma made, and that was a huge turning point in this game when late Georgia could not hit a free throw, and then Oklahoma down the stretch was able to close it out by, again, hitting some shots from the line. The third thing that Oklahoma did really well is they allowed their star to go out of his mind. They put him in positions to succeed. Jeremiah Fears, the star freshman, he had an amazing game. 29 points, 8 of 16 from the floor, 9 of 12 from the free throw line. He had 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and 3 steals, 5 turnovers for Fears, but still an incredible 29-point performance. He was able to kind of clutch this out there towards the end. He had a big run in the first half where he was scoring a ton of points. He was all over the place. This was not like a sporadic, hey, Georgia found a way to lose a tight one there at the end. This was kind of Oklahoma at various points just kept punching over and over and over from the offensive side of the ball. And midway through the second half, there was a 16-0 run by Oklahoma that sealed it. And that was the fourth thing here. It wasn't necessarily a massive game of runs, but there was that big final punch there where Georgia, in the middle of the second half, I should say, just didn't have any answers. They had some shots go in late. They were able to kind of cut the game close, but again, just not enough for Mike White and the Bulldogs. If I'm not mistaken, the Locked On Bulldogs host, if I'm not mistaken, Clint Shamblin, continued to say over and over and over on the SEC squad, Mike White's going to ruin somebody's season. It did not come in the SEC tournament, but the Bulldogs are in the NCAA tournament, so we'll keep that posted there, see if the Bulldogs are able to make a run in March here. But yeah, those were the four things that Oklahoma did. They had an insane outside shooting performance. They won the free throw line. Jeremiah Fears had an amazing game, and then they had a massive run there in the second half that kind of sealed the deal thanks to their hot shooting. What exactly do we know about the Sooners, how they performed this year, what have been the positives, the negatives, the schedule stuff, the players that have been impactful for them? We're going to dive into all of it here in just a moment. Before we do it, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at TurboTax. This is a message from sponsor Intuit. TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. It's an expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, get you every investment and everything with 100% accuracy, all so you can get the most money back guaranteed. It's no waiting. It's no wondering, and it's no worries. Now, this is Taxes. You can get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, continuing along here on the Wednesday edition of Locked On Kentucky, the super late Wednesday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Really appreciate you guys checking out the show today. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I would greatly appreciate it if you did so. Going to be breaking down Kentucky basketball's rematch with the Oklahoma Sooners. So we talked a little bit about what Oklahoma did in that game, the 81-75 victory over Georgia in the first round of the SEC tournament, how they were able to get that victory. Let's tell you a little bit more about the Sooners as a whole, in case you don't know kind of how they have been constructed this season. They have only beaten one team ranked inside the top 25 of the KenPom rankings all season long, which is kind of surprising, and that actually came at the end of the regular season. They defeated Missouri, dropped a bunch of points on them, had a crazy efficient offensive game, shot very well from both three and inside the arc. 96-84 was the final score there. Missouri was the only team on their schedule that they have beaten in the SEC play, I should say. Only team in SEC play that they've beaten inside the top 25 of the KenPom rankings. Kentucky obviously ranking 12th. The impressive thing about Oklahoma, and this is why they're going to get into the NCAA tournament now, is what they were able to do in the non-con. Had a big win over Arizona, big win over Michigan. Both of those teams, I believe they also beat Louisville, all three of those teams inside the top 25 on KenPom. They found ways to gut it out, and a lot of their success has come when they have been able to hit such an efficient clip from three. They've been able to find some outside shots, find some rhythm, and then kind of keep their opponent on their toes because, man, the defense just has not been there all season long. They've got really, really bad rim protection. You wonder about what this team's going to look like tomorrow against Kentucky with Sam Godwin out potentially. He injured his knee, I believe, against Texas. Did not play the rest of that game. Did not play yesterday, or today, I should say. It's still Wednesday when I'm recording this. He didn't play against Georgia, and they suffered. The Bulldogs kind of had their way at various points inside shot 51.4% from two. Of course, you also have to take into account the fact that Georgia took some really dumb mid-range jumpers, which, again, there's nothing wrong with taking some of them. It's just you take too much and you miss all of them. You're going to end up having a rough time offensively unless you're just going ballistic from three, which Georgia did hit 10 threes, but still wasn't enough. Also 9 of 16 from the charity stripe will get you beat as well. But the Sooners, not a great defense. They are currently sitting right now, and let me pull it up, 71st first. An adjusted defensive efficiency, they are 14th in the conference there in that statistic. Really bad rim protection. And then the 11th best offense in SEC play. They've really had to have things go right on the offensive end of the floor in order for them to find success at all this season. And they had some things go right, absolutely, against Kentucky. They scored 82 points in that game. They shot 40% from three. Moore was the guy that kind of went off for them, despite Jeremiah Fears dropping 18 points and being the star, obviously, of that team. They push you with pace. They play aggressively. And yes, it doesn't always end in a bucket, but man, whenever they are shooting hot, it puts a lot of pressure on their opponent because of the pace of play. More pace, more possessions, more points. Sometimes slower, more methodical teams, despite being efficient, they can't put that pressure on you, but Oklahoma certainly can. And we saw that at various points against the Wildcats in Norman just a couple of weeks ago. The two X factors here for the Sooners and the Wildcats, I believe. And the X factor, by the way, is not like the leading scorer. It's not the guy that you expect to go off. It's not always the players that are at the top of the statistical charts or whatever have you. It's not the guys that are always making the most impact, at least when it comes to points or rebounds or something like that. I've got two here for you. One here for Oklahoma, one here for Kentucky. I think Jalon Moore is going to be, or Jalon Moore, I don't know how do you pronounce it, but Jalon or Jalon Moore, I think he is the X factor here. He's the second leading scorer on this team, and obviously Fears dropped 29 and played very well overall for the Sooners. But I'm really concerned about how Kentucky approaches the secondary options in this game, because I think you're going to have one guy guarding Moore pretty consistently in this one. And if it's not him, it's going to be Colin Chandler, which we'll get to that player in a second. But Moore is the guy that concerns me as somebody that can stretch it from three, is shooting a very efficient clip inside the arc as well, shooting at 48.2% from the floor overall, 16 points a game, 5.8 rebounds. It's not going to be your star. It's not going to be your lead guard here. And Jeremiah Fears, that I think is the X factor, the thing that kind of shocks you. I think it could be Moore that ends up having himself a really big game. If Jalon Moore is going to be the guy that's the X factor for Oklahoma, then you turn to Lamont Butler as your X factor for Kentucky to try and shut the backcourt down, specifically Jeremiah Fears. Again, I think that Butler is going to be primarily guarding Fears throughout this entire contest, as long as there's no foul trouble, knock on wood. But I think Butler is going to play a huge role here, not scoring, but what he's able to do defensively. I think you could also throw in Colin Chandler if you wanted to here, just because of how big he's been as of late. You could put in Kobe Brea because he's been creating turnovers and hitting threes recently. But I think Butler is my X factor here as the guy that's going to go unsung when it comes to looking at the final box score. I think that what Butler's going to do on defense is going to prove to be very, very, very important in this game. So what are the keys to the game? How is Kentucky going to handle the Sooners? Who's going to win? Well, I'll tell you all that in just a second. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Factor. Are you looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Well, Factor makes eating, well, easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. They've got 40 different options across 8 dietary preferences every week, so you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle. Whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Plus, Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, and grab-and-go snacks to help you keep fueled all day, long. The convenience is unbeatable. There's no prep, no mess, and it's just great food in just a couple of minutes. You can eat smart with Factor. You can get started at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 off and use code LOCKEDONCollege50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LOCKEDONCollege50 off at factormeals.com/LOCKEDONCollege50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. All right, wrapping up the Wednesday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Let's get to keys to the game here for the Kentucky Wildcats. We talked about how the Sooners beat Georgia. We talked about kind of what they've been so far this season. Not been great in SEC play. Wins over South Carolina, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Missouri, Texas. Some lesser competition, quote unquote. And I'm not saying relative to Kentucky per se. I'm just saying relative to the cream of the crop in the SEC. They've struggled offensively at various points, but they've been turning it up, shooting the ball outside lately. They play with tempo. They are aggressive. They will not necessarily churn you over, nor will they be a great rebounding team. But, man, they do a really good job of speeding opponents up and making them play their pace of basketball. So the keys to the game here, first and foremost, for Kentucky to win, you cannot let Jalon Moore and Jeremiah Fears beat you. You have to try and find a way to slow both of them down. I don't know how Kentucky's going to do it. I think they can only probably slow one of these guys down. Both of them are really, really good scorers on a team that likes to put the ball in the hole and score points. You have to find a way to slow down both of them. I don't know how they're going to do it. If they can get at least one, that's a big step in the right direction. And then for Kentucky, offensively, second point here, key to the game, it's shot selection. For Kentucky, you cannot be sped up. Obviously, you like to play with some speed as well, but you can't settle for jump shots. You can't settle for these leaners around the paint area if you're Otega Oweh. If you're going to have another star performance from Oweh, you have to be at the rim, point blank, knocking down shots. Be aggressive going to the rim. Don't settle for jump shots and make them foul you. It's the same thing that we talked about in the preview episode for Oklahoma way back when in February. You have to be aggressive going to the rim, and you have to make them foul you. You have to get to the charity stripe. That's the third point here. You have to win the free throw line. Georgia going 9 of 16 will kill just about any team. It'll kill just about any team. But, man, you cannot let your opponent shoot 25 free throws relative to your 9 makes. You have to be able to either close the gap or win the free throw line, period. I think part of that could come down to late game stuff and some shenanigans that could happen towards the end. Who knows? All I'm saying is that you need to find a way to try and win it. If not, be as efficient as you possibly can. And then the final key here. I think Kentucky's got to find a way to win the turnover battle. At the very least, similar to the Missouri game. At the very least, if you cannot get more turnovers than your opponent, cash in on the ones that you create. That's something that Kentucky did so well against Mizzou. Score when you create extra possessions for yourself by grabbing turnovers. If you can win the turnover battle, if you can be even or win the free throw line, if you can have solid shot selection, and you can shut down either Moore, Fears, or both, you're going to win this game. Kentucky is favored by 6.5. I'm going to take them by 8. I think Kentucky wins this game by 8. It never goes well whenever I predict scores on this show. It always goes better whenever I don't. I'm going to hope that Kentucky finds a way to win. I think they'll win this game, and they will pull away late. They will find a way. I hope so, at the very least. This is a stressor. This is one that's going to make me nervous. It's going to be super late, going to be worried all day tomorrow, kind of under the weather right now, just kind of all over the place. So this is a big one. My nerves are all over the place. I hope Kentucky is more prepared than I am. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Will Kentucky win? Will they lose? How much will they win or lose by? Will they make a run in the SEC tournament? Would appreciate it if you left your thoughts. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. You can follow me on Twitter at LanceDawe_, and follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave those in the YouTube comments below. You can hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.